Hello, and welcome to Unwind Sessions, where right after my shift I give the highlights of my workday and hope to do so very soon with a Q&A right after. My name is Juan. I am an English Spanish medical video remote interpreter with over 4 years, with over 4 years of experience. Today is Thursday, March 25th, 2021. I did not work yesterday, so there was no video. There will be a video today and tomorrow. I took a total of 26 calls today, a mix between phone calls and video calls. So let's get started. The first thing that happened today was that I was in a session with a therapist with a child that had autism, and the therapist was teaching the mother how to get the child to try new experiences and actually uh, start integrating the new experiences for the child. And then she mentioned a way that she could use the first den method. And the first thing that came into my mind was like a den of a house, and it didn't make sense to me, so of course I said, "Hi, I'm sorry, this is the interpreter, but I am not familiar with first den. Is there any other way that you can explain that for me?" And she actually translated it. She said, "Oh yeah, first den, primero después," and that's when it clicked. Which what she meant was first then, as in first this, then that, and I was able to. Well, she actually gave me the translation, so of course I was able to give it to her, to the mother. But the thing is that I had never heard that before. First, then that was the first time I had ever heard it, and I did a little research, and um, it's like a method that they do for autism. Like first you eat the raviolis and then you get to play with your favorite toy, like something like that. And that's a way for children with autism to actually start accepting new activities or new behaviors, even new foods into their life. And it's just one way to help them to cope with new things and things that they don't like. The second thing that happened today was that a lady said that she read that on online that she might have a candida in the stomach, and I had to look up candida because I had never heard it before. And it turns out that candida is the scientific name for a yeast infection, and I had heard candidiasis, which is pretty much the same thing. On the page where I researched it, it says that candida, also known as candidiasis, which is just a yeast infection. And uh, another thing that also happened today is something that happens um, quite often. Not like really often every day, but I would say maybe about once or twice a month, maybe a little more. And it's something that I really don't like, and I really hate interpreting for this type of people because it's the type of people that just ramble and ramble and ramble. It was a lady that, whenever she was asked something, she would not give a straight answer, or she would just answer the question and then she would just throw a whole bunch of irrelevant information. And the difficult thing for interpreting for this type of patients is that they give you so much information, and they really don't need to give you that much information. Like they ask, what pills are you taking? And then they go on about the pills that they're taking and the pills that they used to take and the name of their dog and their favorite color. And it's just so irrelevant, and it's so hard to keep up with the information that they give you, and to actually give a precise an accurate, yeah, precise or an accurate rendition. It becomes a little difficult because they give you so much information. and information that really is not relevant to the conversation. Another thing that this lady did that I also really hate is that she kept on interrupting the doctor, or I don't know if it was a doctor, it was a medical provider, but she kept on interrupting him. And I really don't like this. I hate this because I find it so disrespectful. Because if you're going to the doctor and you're there because you something's not right with you and you don't know what it is, so I mean, you're with the doctor, you might as well just let him speak and understand everything that he is saying because you're there, you're paying for it, and it's important what he has to tell you. He's going to tell you about your disease or your condition or whatever's going on with you. And I find it so disrespectful, and I really hate it that the provider might say something and then the patient answers right after and doesn't even let me or let me interpret whatever the medical provider said. And how do I go about handling this? It actually depends on the situation. Sometimes like the doctor might say something and then the patient answers right after, but it's like a little thing. When this happens, I mean, I don't have to forget what the medical provider said because it's just like a sentence that the patient said. So what I do in that moment is that I actually give the patient the rendition of what the doctor or the medical provider said, and then at the end, I let the doctor know what the patient said before he let me interpret. And sometimes it works. It doesn't work all the time because if the doctor or the medical provider gives a lengthy statement and then the patient gives a lengthy statement as well, I mean, it's very difficult to remember because most of the time it like what the doctor says doesn't have to do with what the patient is asking. So it's a little difficult to follow that situation. And when the doctor says something really long and the patient says something really long, then forget about it. If you can do it, then great for you. But most of the time, I find that it's impossible for me to actually do that, so I don't even try it. When I'm about to give the rendition and the patient and the patient answers and doesn't let me interpret, one thing that comes to mind is that the interpreter should not be there. Like, not be there. I mean, it should be your interpretation should be clear to make it feel like if you were not even there. That is one of the things that comes to mind. So, in that sense, if they were speaking to each other, and to me, it feels like the actually, and you know what? Not only the patients do this, some medical providers would do it as well. So what I think is that if they don't understand the language and they don't let you interpret, it means they don't care about what is being said. So I automatically just do not give the rendition that I was supposed to give, and I focus on what is being said, and I just give the rendition. Sometimes they don't care and they move on. Sometimes the patient or the medical provider will say, "Could you please tell them what I said?" And then, well, of course, you you have to tell them what they said because they're asking for it. But I don't do it off of memory. I tell them what happened. I tell them, well, could you please repeat what you said because the person did not give me a time to answer. So I forgot everything you said and I focused on what the person was saying so I could render it back to you. And they usually do. Most of the time they do. Sometimes they just don't tell you anything and they just go on with the conversation. So that's two ways of going about that. And sometimes also one thing that happens is that the one party says something and then they don't let you interpret, but they ask the very same thing that you were about to explain that the other party said. And when this happens, then I ignore, well, I don't ignore, I acknowledge what the patient said, and then I just give them the rendition happened, and I let the other party know that the person was just asking the very same question that the other party was about to answer. So that's three ways that you can handle this situation. But again, every situation is going to be unique, and you're going to have to figure out how to handle each situation on your own. And it will all come down to like personal taste and who you are. Then another thing that happened. This is the last thing that I'm gonna talk about. It was a gentleman that was hard of hearing, and no matter how much I yelled at him, the gentleman could not hear me. So I decided to take upon another strategy once I heard this was a therapy called a swallow study, and the therapist would just repeat back what I said. Like for example, if she said, "I need you to swallow," and I would be like, "Necesito que trague." But the provider would only focus on one word, "trague," "trague." So I knew that the gentleman couldn't hear me, and I knew that the lady needed to get like small commands fast to get him to do what he needed, and there was not really a big explanation. So instead of saying the whole thing, like for example, "I need you to stick out your tongue," I would just say, "saque la lengua," instead of "necesito que saque la lengua." Uh, that way, the provider would just be like, "Saca la lengua" or "saca lengua," and that call went pretty good. At the end, I was able to speak to the gentleman, and he could hear me because they put me like right on his face, and he heard me after I was yelling at him, and everything went well. But I mean, sometimes the situation is going to um, make you think on your feet, make you think fast, and actually do things that you wouldn't do in a regular session, but that actually need to be done to give the conversation a good flow. Like, for example, in this case, it didn't make sense to me to actually interpret everything that needed to be said, but actually condense it into as little words as possible so that the lady can actually relay it back in Spanish to the gentleman. And I found this situation very unique because it had never happened before, and I was able to think fast and I was able to do it. But there has been times when the patient cannot hear me, and no matter how hard I yell, and they have to give lengthy statements, and there's just no way to for that to work. So they usually just end the call, and they must use some other type of interpretation, like in-person interpretation that is better fitted for the room because the person can actually speak louder and is right next to them. So that's pretty much all I have for you today. Please leave your questions in the comments. Remember that I will be answering a couple of questions every day, the day after you actually do the questions. And you have until 6 p.m. Mountain Time of the next day to actually post a question. I will be here every Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. to around 6:20 p.m. Mountain Time when I actually do it live. Right now I'm not doing it live, so I'm just gonna keep on just uploading these videos on Patreon. I actually wanted to serve as practice so that I can give you better material and not say so much ums and ahs. So this is going to be like great practice for me, and I do hope to start seeing some of your questions soon. So that will be pretty much for me. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe if you liked the video for more content, and don't forget to share. Happy interpreting. Goodbye.